The morning was cold and gray, with a thick fog clinging to the trees of Blackthorn Forest. 3 men, lifelong friends named Ethan, Caleb, and Marcus, ventured into the woods. They had heard rumors of odd sounds echoing from the forest depths for weeks, high-pitched whines and low, mournful howls. The townsfolk dismissed it as stray animals or the wind, but the men felt a pull to investigate. They carried backpacks with water, flashlights, and a first aid kit, prepared for a long hike. The path was overgrown, with roots twisting across the ground and branches scraping their jackets. As they walked deeper, the air grew heavier, and the sounds of the town faded. The forest seemed to watch them, its silence broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot. After an hour, they spotted the outline of an old hunting cabin, its wooden walls weathered and sagging. The door was half open, swaying on rusted hinges. From inside came a faint, pitiful whimper that stopped them in their tracks. Something was alive in there, and it needed help. The men stood frozen at the cabin's entrance, the whimpering sound growing louder, more desperate. Ethan pushed the door open, its creak echoing in the stillness. The air inside was damp and carried a sharp, metallic scent that stung their noses. Dust floated in the faint light filtering through cracked windows. The cabin was small, with a single room cluttered with broken furniture, a splintered table, a chair missing a leg, and a rusted stove in the corner. Cobwebs draped the walls, and the floorboards groaned under their steps. In the far corner, a shadow moved slightly, accompanied by a weak, trembling whine. The men's eyes adjusted to the dimness, and they saw it, a dog, curled into a tight ball, its body thin and shivering. Its fur was tangled with dirt, and patches of dried blood matted its coat. The animal's eyes, wide and glossy, locked onto them, pleading for rescue. Without a word, the men moved toward it, their footsteps careful but urgent. Caleb knelt beside the dog, his hands gentle as he reached out. The animal flinched but didn't pull away, too weak to resist. Marcus and Ethan joined him, their faces tense with concern. The dog was a medium-sized breed, its ribs visible beneath its skin. They carefully lifted it, expecting to find nothing but the filthy blankets beneath. But as they moved the dog, something shifted under the pile. A metallic clank made them pause. Ethan brushed the blankets aside, revealing an old metal box, its surface rusted and stained dark. The men exchanged glances, their pulses quickening. Caleb opened the box, and a foul odor hit them. Inside were bones, small, delicate ones, likely from rabbits or birds. Among them was a tiny collar, cracked and faded, with the name, Milo, scratched into it. The men's breath caught. Marcus noticed the floorboards beneath were loose. He pried one up, revealing a hidden space. Wrapped in a tattered quilt were old photographs, yellowed with age, and what looked like human bones. The men stood in stunned silence, staring at the contents beneath the floorboards. The photographs showed a family, parents, a young girl, and a dog that looked strikingly like the one they had just lifted. The images were faded, their edges curling, but the faces were clear enough to stir unease. The bones, partially wrapped in the rotting quilt, were small and brittle, some unmistakably human. Ethan's hands trembled as he set the dog down gently on a cleaner patch of floor. The animal whimpered, its eyes never leaving the men. Caleb's face paled as he examined the bones closer, noticing a cracked ring on what appeared to be a finger bone. Marcus stepped back, his boots scraping against the floor, his mind racing to piece together what they had stumbled upon. The cabin, once just an old relic of the forest, now felt like a tomb. The metallic scent in the air seemed stronger, almost suffocating. The men knew they had uncovered something far darker than they had expected, but the dog's weak breathing kept them grounded, urging them to focus on saving it first. The men worked quickly to stabilize the dog, wrapping it in a jacket from Marcus's backpack. Ethan poured water into a small bowl from his pack, and the dog lapped at it weakly, its strength fading. As they tended to the animal, their eyes kept drifting to the open floorboards. Marcus, unable to resist, picked up one of the photographs. It showed the family outside the cabin, smiling, with the dog, younger and healthier, sitting at their feet. Another photo showed the girl, no older than 10, holding the same collar they had found in the box. The men realized the dog had been guarding this place, perhaps for years. Caleb found a newspaper clipping tucked among the photos, dated over 2 decades ago. It mentioned a family that vanished in Blackthorn Forest, their case unsolved. The article described a search that turned up nothing but an abandoned car near the cabin. The men's stomachs churned as they connected the dots: the dog, the bones, the photographs. This cabin held the remains of a tragedy, and the dog had stayed, loyal to its lost family. The men stood in the dim cabin, the weight of their discovery pressing heavily on them. The dog, now wrapped in Marcus's jacket, lay quietly, its breathing shallow but steady. Ethan carefully placed the photographs and newspaper clipping back into the quilt, his hands moving with deliberate care to avoid disturbing the bones further. The air inside the cabin felt oppressive, as if the walls themselves held the memory of what had happened here. Caleb, usually the most composed of the group, paced near the door, his eyes darting between the dog and the open floorboards. The realization that they had stumbled upon an unsolved tragedy, one that had haunted the town for decades, made their mission feel larger than they had anticipated. They had come to investigate strange noises, perhaps to rescue a stray animal, but now they were entangled in something far more complex. Marcus knelt beside the dog, stroking its head gently, noticing how it leaned into his touch despite its weakness. The animal's loyalty, its refusal to abandon this place, struck a chord in him. He wondered how long it had survived here, alone, scavenging what little it could find in the forest. The men exchanged no words, but their shared glances conveyed a mutual understanding. They had to act, not just for the dog, but to bring closure to the mystery they had uncovered. Ethan pulled out his phone, checking for a signal. The forest was notoriously spotty, but a single bar flickered to life. He stepped outside, the fog curling around him, and dialed the local sheriff's office. The call connected, and he spoke in a low, steady voice, explaining what they had found. The dispatcher promised the team would arrive within the hour, but the men knew they couldn't leave the dog or the cabin unguarded. They settled in to wait, the dog's faint whimpers filling the silence. Caleb rummaged through his backpack, pulling out a protein bar and breaking it into small pieces to feed the dog, who nibbled weakly. The men's minds raced with questions. Who had done this? Why had the dog stayed? And what had kept this secret hidden for so long? The forest remained still as the men waited, the fog thickening outside the cabin. The dog, now slightly more alert after eating, rested its head on Marcus's lap, its eyes half closed but still watchful. The men sat in a loose circle around the animal, their flashlights casting long shadows across the warped floorboards. The photographs and bones remained untouched, a grim reminder of the cabin's history. Ethan kept checking his watch, the minutes dragging on as they anticipated the sheriff's team. The silence was broken by the distant hum of engines, followed by the crunch of tires on the forest path. Headlights pierced the fog, and soon, 3 figures emerged: Sheriff Daniels, a deputy, and a forensic specialist named Dr. Larson. The men stood, their faces etched with relief and tension, as they recounted their discovery. Sheriff Daniels, a grizzled man with decades of experience, listened intently, his expression darkening as Ethan described the bones and photographs. Dr. Larson, carrying a kit of equipment, knelt beside the open floorboards, her gloved hands carefully examining the quilt and its contents. She confirmed the bones were human, likely belonging to multiple individuals, and noted the photographs aligned with the missing family case from 2003. The deputy, a younger man named Torres, took notes and photographs, his camera flashes illuminating the cabin's grim interior. The dog stirred, lifting its head as the strangers entered, but it didn't growl or retreat, as if sensing the importance of their presence. Sheriff Daniels questioned the men about their hike, the noises they'd heard, and how they found the dog. Marcus explained the dog's condition, emphasizing its loyalty to this place. Dr. Larson suggested the dog might have survived on small animals and rainwater, its emaciated state indicating weeks, if not months, of struggle. The sheriff's team worked efficiently, cordoning off the cabin and collecting evidence. They handled the bones with care, placing them in sealed bags for analysis. The photographs and newspaper clipping were bagged separately, their significance undeniable. As the team worked, the men stayed close to the dog, ensuring it felt safe amidst the activity. Sheriff Daniels promised a full investigation, suspecting the cabin might hold more clues. He thanked the men for their vigilance, noting that their decision to investigate the noises had likely solved a case that had haunted the town for years. The dog, still weak, was carefully lifted by Marcus and carried to the sheriff's vehicle, where a blanket and water awaited. The men followed, their footsteps heavy with the knowledge of what they had uncovered, but their hearts lifted by the thought of saving the animal that had led them to the truth. The sheriff's team escorted the men and the dog back to town, the forest's oppressive silence giving way to the hum of the vehicles. Marcus held the dog close, its frail body wrapped in the blanket, its breathing steadier now. The men sat in the back of the sheriff's SUV, their minds replaying the grim discovery in the cabin. At the station, Sheriff Daniels briefed them on the next steps. The bones and photographs were sent to a lab for analysis, and the cabin was sealed off for a thorough investigation. Dr. Larson shared preliminary findings. The bones likely belonged to the family reported missing in 2003, a couple and their young daughter, last seen near Blackthorn Forest. The newspaper clipping had mentioned their car, found abandoned near the cabin, but no trace of them until now. The dog, identified by its collar as Milo, had belonged to the daughter. How it had survived all these years remained a mystery, but Dr. Larson speculated it had scavenged in the forest, returning to the cabin out of instinct or loyalty. The men listened, their faces grim, as the sheriff explained the case had been a cold one, with no leads until their discovery. Ethan asked about the dog's condition, and a veterinarian, called to the station, examined Milo. The dog was severely malnourished, with minor injuries from living in the wild, but it showed signs of recovery potential. The men felt a surge of relief, their bond with the animal strengthening. Sheriff Daniels requested they stay in town for further questioning, but allowed them to take Milo home temporarily, provided they ensured its care. Marcus volunteered, his apartment spacious enough and his schedule flexible. As they left the station, the men carried a mix of emotions: sorrow for the family's fate, awe at Milo's survival, and a sense of purpose in having uncovered the truth. The town buzzed with whispers of the discovery, and the men noticed curious glances from passers-by. Back at Marcus's apartment, they set up a bed for Milo, using blankets and a bowl of water. The dog settled in, its eyes following Marcus as he moved. The men sat together, discussing the day's events, their voices low. They wondered about the family's final moments, and what had led to such a tragedy. The photographs haunted them, the smiling faces, unaware of their fate. Caleb suggested the cabin might hold more evidence, perhaps hidden in its walls or beneath other floorboards. Ethan agreed, but they left it to the authorities, their role now focused on Milo's recovery. The dog, though weak, seemed to sense safety, its tail giving a faint wag as Marcus sat beside it. The men vowed to follow the investigation, determined to see justice for the family and a new life for Milo. Weeks passed, and the investigation into the cabin deepened. The lab confirmed the bones belonged to the missing family, and forensic evidence suggested foul play, though the perpetrator remained unidentified. The case, reopened with fresh momentum, brought closure to the town, which had long mourned the family's disappearance. The men visited the sheriff's station regularly, providing statements and learning updates. Milo, under Marcus's care, grew stronger each day. The veterinarian prescribed a diet to rebuild the dog's strength, and regular checkups showed progress. Milo's fur, once matted and dull, began to shine, and its eyes brightened with life. Marcus took Milo on short walks, first around the apartment, then to a nearby park. The dog's steps were tentative at first, but soon it trotted with confidence, chasing birds and sniffing the grass. The men often gathered at Marcus's place, watching Milo's transformation with quiet pride. They learned from the sheriff that Milo had likely survived by eating small animals and drinking from streams, its loyalty to the cabin keeping it tethered to the site of its family's loss. The collar with Milo etched on it was cleaned and placed on the dog, a symbol of its past and present. The men found inspiration in Milo's resilience, a reminder that life could endure even in the face of tragedy. The town began to heal, with memorials held for the family, their names no longer a mystery but a part of Blackthorn's history. Marcus decided to adopt Milo permanently, unable to part with the dog that had led them to the truth. On a sunny afternoon, the men took Milo to a field near the forest's edge, far from the cabin's shadow. The dog ran freely, its barks echoing with joy. Ethan, Caleb, and Marcus watched, their hearts lighter than they had been in weeks. The discovery in the cabin had changed them, deepening their bond and their sense of purpose. Milo, once a guardian of a dark secret, now embodied hope, a living testament to loyalty and survival. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the field, the men felt a quiet resolve. They had ventured into the forest seeking answers, and though they found tragedy, they also found a reason to move forward. Milo, the dog who had held on through years of loss, now ran toward a new chapter, and they would walk beside him,